and welcome, guys, to another live episode of The Catalyst. My name is Stuart Takahara. I'm the Vice President of Membership here of the Long Beach Area Chamber of Commerce. The title of today's topic is Creating Compelling Videos for Nonprofits. And I'm excited to have two of the best in the business that talk about this, Mr. Mike Bauch from Wolfgang Media and the director of, where did your title go? Director of Programs for the Boys and Girls Club of Long Beach, Mr. Philip Redd. Both of you, welcome to The Catalyst. Great to have you here.
Good to be here.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you for having us.
Now, first off, we're going to get into a lot of the different intricacies of utilizing videos specifically for nonprofits. So my first question, Mike, how do you approach it differently than, say, a commercial or a video for a commercial business?
Sure. I mean, that's a good question. I've been lucky enough actually to connect, I think, with a lot of nonprofits in Long Beach just from being around for a while, and I think creating work that makes a difference. But, it is a little bit different, for creating for nonprofits. I think for both videos for corporate nonprofit, you're always wanting to tell a good story. You always want to have good characters. You always want to tell a good story. For nonprofits, I think what really draws me to it is you're using a lot of the same skills as the corporate videos, but you're aiming for, I would say, a deeper or a broader cause. There's something deeper than selling a product. You're really selling an idea. You're really selling something bigger than yourself. And I think that's kind of what draws me to do that. And I know that's a little, there's no numbers on that right there and then, but that's kind of the feeling I get when I create both of these type of videos.
Mr. Redd, you're with the Boys and Girls Club, and you've been working with Mike for several years now. Why is it that you feel like video is such an important thing for what you do?
I think videos are important because they really allow us to tell a story. One of the best things that we're able to do through video is tell the background story of our young people. I think so many times our donors, different community partners, even us as admin staff, we sometimes look at how can we really see what's going on? We even equate it to like a day in the life of a club member. And when you look at something like that, you really have to look at these videos as being able to capture moments and tell different parts of the story that would not otherwise have been told.
Now, Mike, you have a video that you produced for the Boys and Girls Club that we're going to watch here in a little bit. What is the purpose of this video? What is it that you were hoping to do? And give us a little backstory, or maybe both of you guys could give me a little backstory on how this video came to fruition, your brainstorming, your thought process, and what you guys were trying to do.
For sure. I mean, Boys and Girls Club came to me actually way back in 2020. I created one of the first videos for them, and it was about keeping donors and supporters connected to the Boys and Girls Club and really saying thank you, getting that thank you message out there. That was the first video I did. It was only a minute, and I think that got the ball rolling, and I think they liked what they saw, and they wanted to create something more. And that's when Carrie, Mr. Redd, came to me and said, hey, we do this Youth of the Year program. It's a really great opportunity, I think, to capture, like Mr. Redd said, like a day in the life of these young people. And, the donors, supporters, they can't be at all the clubs at all the time and know all the kids. So how can we get like these three candidates? How can we tell their stories in front of this audience of, 300 people in a short amount of time? So we really did this brainstorming session and came up with, how can we do this? How can we tell the story? We want them to be just under 3 minutes. We want to capture, their feeling and their accomplishments and their dreams and their goals and their hopes in 3 minutes, right? It sounds like a big challenge, but it is a good challenge. And we didn't want to just have them speak as a talking head. We wanted to show it as well. I remember doing show and tell in school, and that was one of my favorite subjects. We have them speaking on camera, but then the whole key is how can we actually show it? Them interacting with the other kids, them interacting with the staff. What do they really want to do with their lives, and where are they going, and what do they want to accomplish? So we started doing the first ones, and I think there was a pretty big success. I just remember sitting there live that night for the first time and getting to watch it as an audience member. And I mean, I was getting teary-eyed, and I made the videos, and when I'm editing, like to put them together, if I start to get goosebumps or if I start to get a little tear in my eye, I'm like, okay, this is going in the right direction. Right. And that we want people not just to see the numbers, but we want them to like feel the story of the kids behind those numbers.
Well, what I'd like to do is you have the video ready to go. Let's play it, and then we'll kind of do a deep dive into the theory, the thought process behind it. If that okay?
Yeah, for sure. So this was one from last year, one of the candidates. And by the way, out of these three, the top one wins a really nice scholarship and some great support in their lives. So it really does change the trajectory of their lives with what they do to win the Youth of the Year. So this is one of the candidates. Her name's Angelica. I'm not going to show you this year's videos. Obviously, you got to come to the event if you want to see that next Thursday. But we will show you one from last year just so you guys can get a feel for it. It's just under 3 minutes, so I'm going to get it all set. Yeah. All right. And you just confirm it's going to play okay. Here we go.
My name is Angelica Ragland. I go to Poly High School. I'm a junior and I'm 16. I feel like my role model at the Boys and Girls Club is Miss Tally. I feel like she makes me feel super welcome to the club, and I feel like I can just have conversations with her that are very natural, and she's just my safe space. Like, I love, talking to her. Miss Tally inspires me to want to help other people and just to be there for people and listen to their stories.
The only way to protect yourself from the cheese touch is to cross your fingers. Everybody cross their fingers.
I think it's important that I spend time with younger members to be a role model to them. I want to be able to show them things and just be someone that they can hopefully look up to in the future when they start getting older. And I just want to create that great bonding experience with them.
That's all for today.
Of course. Working with the kids and cooking with them brings me joy. I love to be able to teach them new recipes and to just teach them new things. I feel like that's the highlight of my day coming here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Angelica Ragland, and I'm excited here today to share my journey and the profound impact the Boys and Girls Club has had in my life. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen to me. Something that I'm most proud of is myself. I've been through so much in my life, and I'm just proud that I'm still here and that I've gotten this far. And I'm just proud for how strong I am, too. I feel like the world is really, a lot's going on in the world. And it's just best to be strong-minded and keep a positive outlook on things.
Wow.
So there it is. And now 300 people all clapping and going crazy. And she's coming up on the stage. So that's kind of that's what happens when it happens live, right?
So take us through this video. This was designed with a specific person to show at the gala, the Youth of the Year gala.
Yeah. So how we do this process is, Mike is a whiz, we're the best tag team west of the Mississippi. And what we do is, we try to start the process of kind of just getting to know the young people. We select 3 Youth of the Year candidates to represent the Boys and Girls Clubs of Long Beach. And through those 3 candidates, again, we want to tell that story. We want them to be able to feel comfortable, but we want it to be relatable as well. So while Mike is kind of setting up, we're doing the pre-work. We're asking them how their day is. We're asking them what's going on. We're asking them what are some things that they like to do. As the director of program, I could already tell what programs they're in based off of their applications, but what are some more seamless things that you do? And in the video shown, you've seen that, she's an avid, she loves getting fresh fruit. So she always picks fresh fruit. That's her de-stressor. Angelica was amazing to work with. She started a cooking club. She started a pantry. So each person, it's our opportunity to tell their individual story and to get a better understanding as to what they have to offer, not just the club, not just the community, but just the bigger picture, the world, just the collective as a whole. So it's been an amazing journey. Again, Mike is a true professional. We partner very, very well, asking very, very detailed and reflective questions. But the kids are the ones that they just get it. And then they just start lighting up. And, we get a lot of B-roll footage, but it's more about them. They get a chance to tell their story in a place that they like to call their second home.
So, Mike, when you're looking at this, where do you start? When you have this idea, you have to create this video for an introduction. Do you start with talent? You kind of work your way back, or do you already kind of have a vision for where you want to go? Talk to me about your brainstorm process through this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think, part of the key is a little bit of brainstorming before I come in and film, because I talked to Mr. Redd and his team and Carrie and try to get a feel for what each of the candidates, what their personality is like, what their strengths are, maybe what their weaknesses are, what is what do they do at the clubs? What are their accomplishments? What do they want to do with their lives? So I kind of try to get in my head, okay, what would be good B-roll or cutaway shots to illustrate the story? What can we film to cut away just from their talking head and actually show them doing things? And for Angelica, it was like, oh, she's into gardening. She's into cooking. She works really great with these younger members and she reads to them. It's something she does naturally at the club. So we're like, oh man, those 3 shots, if we can get those, we can really illustrate the story. And I'll tell you, she was probably one of the most natural on camera. She was really, really good.
I was going to just say, kids sometimes, well, maybe not nowadays, but I remember kids, back in the day, shy of cameras. But now it seems like everybody is very much more comfortable, I guess, because of cell phones and stuff like that.
That is true. And, the key is Mr. Redd knows the kids and they know him really well. And I think there's a lot of trust and respect between them. So having him there right next to the camera, they're talking really to him. And I'm trying to get them to ignore the camera. If you notice, they're not looking right at the camera. They're looking just off the screen. And that's where Mr. Redd is. He's right next to me. I'm behind the camera. He's asking the questions. And I tell him, hey, just have a conversation with Mr. Redd. Ignore the camera. Pretty much ignore me for the most part and just have a conversation.
Yeah. What's your, Mr. Redd, what's your process on trying to determine out of all the kids, which ones you're going to want to feature and highlight?
So we do have an application process. I would equate it to think about during the school year. We want the most productive, leader, goal-oriented young people to really, really represent our club. So what they're doing is they submit an application. They talk about different clubs that they're in at the Boys and Girls Club, different clubs and programs that they're in at school, if they're in any like community, church, that sort of stuff. And then out of those several, maybe even 10 people that apply, we have a panel of people on our leadership team and we select the top 3. And then those people get a chance to compete. They turn in resumes, they transcripts, among other things. And then when one is selected, one's going to be selected Thursday of next week. And then right after they're selected, they get a chance to represent us in Los Angeles County. And then if they win that process, they get a chance to represent us in Sacramento and be the California Youth of the Year for all Boys and Girls Clubs.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So the process is very, very, it's very wonderful. And I just want to just go back, we have had some shy people. So I don't want you to ever think that sometimes it's like an old car that you got to warm up. But the kids have been great. And the kids have just always had a certain level of excitement. And what I mean by excitement is they're excited to tell what this means to them. And that's all me and Mike really tell them is they'll just tell these amazing 300 people like why the club matters to you. And I think that's the power of this story. That's the power of being able to connect with people, is being able to tell your story in a meaningful and effective way.
And Mike, that's your job, bringing these stories to life.
Yep.
So my question, I guess, is there's a lot of executive directors, presidents of nonprofits of all sizes, big and small, but I want to talk specifically more about the smaller ones because they may not have the resources that the Boys and Girls Club have. They may not have the funds to be able to hire somebody like you, so I was just wondering if you had any advice that you can give to somebody who says, we want to do something like this, but all I've got is my iPhone and a dream, or something along those
Yeah.
lines. How can they take some of the things that you do and at least kind of get the ball rolling on utilizing video in their nonprofit?
For sure. Obviously, like I would like to help as many nonprofits that have a good cause as I can, especially here in Long Beach. I just feel really connected to this city and being able to tell their stories. So if there's any way possible to be able to do it with budget and so on, I'd like to be able to do that. But, we definitely, not everyone has the time or has the resources to do this, these kind of videos all the time. So yeah, what can you do with an iPhone? Honestly, it's pretty amazing what you can do with an iPhone. I'm not going to downplay what you can do with it. I've used an iPhone sometimes even to get B-roll for different projects. If I've got it, it's in my pocket, and let's just say I'm out and about in Long Beach and I see this amazing shot. Like I was at the car show the other day, whenever the Belmont car show was, and I happened to have my cell phone. I'm like, I'm just going to get some footage here. This is amazing. And I do videos for Long Beach all the time. I'm going to get a little bit of footage, and I put it up in its highest setting modes. I put it up in the 4K, and I got these shots, and I'll tell you, they are pretty darn good. And I don't have the newest iPhone. Some people do. But I will say that no matter how good your equipment is or how high tech, you got to have kind of some basic ideas about filming things. And I think one of the, just right off the bat, is like find a way to hold that iPhone steady, because so many people are used to holding it like a phone like this and just walking around, and it's kind of a stream of consciousness. Just film this way, film that way. It's looking everywhere. And I think you got to, in your mind, kind of think, how am I going to make this look a little bit more like a movie? How am I going to make this look a little bit more like a documentary? And one of the main things is, what's your focus? What are you trying to capture? You can't try to capture the whole room at once for the most part. You got to pick your target. And I think that's rule number one, is don't get people dizzy by walking around with a cell phone all over the place. There's a place and a time for those type of videos, maybe action films, maybe stream of conscious. But for professional videos, you got a tripod, a monopod. You can use your body. And I've braced myself like in door frames, to be able to hold the phone steady. I've sat on a park bench and hooked it on the end of the park bench and just held it there. Like the world is sort of your tripod. If you think about it, if you're out and about, you can get some amazing shots. I've shot some stuff in Venice that people didn't know I filmed it with the iPhone. So I think it has its place, but again, you need a little bit of some skills behind it to get some shots that are going to
And
be.
getting the right footage, whether it's on an iPhone or a professional camera, is just the beginning. There's so much more that goes into, like what you were talking about earlier, that moment where you start to tear up, where you hit that emotional sweet spot, right? So that comes into the magic of editing.
That is true. That is very true. When we film these interviews, Mr. Redd and I, sometimes they might take 20 minutes. Sometimes they might go for 45 minutes of raw footage of talking and doing the interview. And I know in the end, the whole video is going to be cut down to less than 3 minutes. So unless we get those gems and those nuggets, it doesn't matter how long we film, we've got to get some usable pieces. And you have to use your intuition on some of that. Sometimes we actually ask the question maybe 3 times in 3 different ways. Mr. Redd will ask it, and then at the end, I might ask it again in a different way, because I know that we can get the answer out a little bit better. And they actually might be more comfortable with us in the last 3 minutes. We might get almost 90% of everything we need in the last 3 minutes, as opposed to the first 42. And like Mr. Redd said, sometimes you have to warm them up. Angelica, she was a natural. That was pretty straightforward. She warmed up pretty fast. But I'll tell you, not all the kids are that warm to the camera. It takes a bit to warm them up. And that can be tough. But you have to stick with it. And when you hear that nugget, when I hear it, I'm like, that's it. I know that we're going to use that piece, So the editing is a very big deal.
So going back to these smaller nonprofits, that are trying to get something, this video was specifically made for the gala that you guys are having next week. Again, we're going to get into that, but suppose they just wanted to do something simple on social media. We do a lot of work with Long Beach Gives. They have videos, sizzle reels and things like that,
Right.
that we're trying to do. So what's a good way that these guys can take that approach? Is there a different strategy or a different starting point? Where would they start, I guess, is the best way to put that question.
Sure. I mean, one thing I would say is some nonprofit or quite a few nonprofits have a gala every year, some big event once a year for the most part. So I would say, with an event like that, try to get some usable B-roll footage of the event itself, first of all, because nonprofits, I think, put a lot of effort and a lot of resources in creating the events themselves. It's really a shame not to have at least some good still frames from the event. Even better, some video clips, right, of the event itself. And one of the things I do, I know a lot of people hold their phones vertically for social media. The only problem with that is I'm kind of thinking big screen because I always want to show it at an event. I tend to shoot horizontal a lot if I'm shooting with my cell phone. The reason is it gives me that movie screen look. It's got that horizontal look to it. And I know in editing, if I have to, I could cut a center piece out of it for social media and make a vertical video. And the other thing is sound is a big deal. If you're trying to do interviews with your mobile phone, one of the big challenges is sound. And Mr. Redd and I have this challenge too. When we're filming those interviews, sometimes just outside the room, there's kids walking by, stuff's going on. And we've got to pause, we got to pause right there. And it's tricky because sometimes it takes, the kids out of their train of thought of the interview, but we got to bring them back in and then keep on going with the interview. So sound's a big deal. And I would say if you can get some sort of clip-on mic that connects to the phone, that's a big plus because it cuts down on so much of the excess noise around you, right? That's a big deal. The other thing is lighting. If you're going to go natural light, let's say you have no lighting to use, one of the things I say is be careful about filming in different situations. If you try to film someone and they're standing in front of a window, for example, and you're shooting straight into that window, straight into that light, it's very hard with just your standard settings on your mobile phone to get a good image. A lot of times it will, turn them into a shadow. It'll blow out the background. It's hard to get that balance. So I say, hey, use the light that you have available instead of trying to fight the light. Don't try to fight the light. So in other words, take that window and maybe put it to the side of them, right? Or just over to the front side of them. But if you put it right behind them and that bright light it turns them a lot of times into a silhouette. It's hard to balance the two things. So that's just a few little tips with using the light that you have.
Yeah. I was going back on something earlier, so I'm kind of bouncing all around because you're saying something and I get these ideas and I want to kind of go back to these things. This is for Mr. Redd. That video that we saw just a bit ago, very compelling, great music, probably took a lot of time, money, effort, energy to go through. There's an easier option. You could have the MC just read the script in a bio and say, Angelica is, and she participates in this, and she's this. Why do you choose to say, no, we're not going to do that? We need the video. You must believe in the power of the video.
No, definitely. Great question. I think we went this route because we've tried the alternative, and that's a very old fashioned, outdated way of not just storytelling, but I don't think it really captures the full story. So in an effort to be a more effective storyteller, in an effort to meet the growing demands of a donor, of community partners, we wanted to look at ways to engage them more. And as Mike said, we kind of took a chance that first year. We kind of we spent a lot of time pre-working. We spent a lot of time going back on some B-roll footage and making sure that we had captured everything. But the most important thing was the reaction that our audience had. Again, these are the people that we're trying to reach, that we're trying to tell them, take a chance on us. This is a great opportunity. We're doing some very meaningful and impactful work. And that's the reason why we started to do the video. In addition, I just wanted to add that, you got to look at it as a return on investment. And I think everything that we do We're trying to hopefully be able to reach a different person who could support the club in a meaningful and effective way. And I think it's achieved its goal because, when I'm in a community and I'm talking to different people, one of the things that I hear a lot of the times is, man, I can't wait for that gala, or I can't wait for what the video is going to look like, or I can't wait to hear this speech, or I can't wait to see these young people and to introduce myself and to it's really just an opportunity for us to really dive in with our community in a more meaningful and effective way.
Yeah. I've said before when we were talking about the preparation for this show that video is so powerful because you see them all the time on TVs, like these infomercials where they're talking about other organizations that are out there. I see things for the SPCA and they show photos of dogs and cats and birds and all these other things. There's so many organizations that are out there that are using video. It is the only one that hits really the majority of your senses, your sound, sight. It really kind of hits that emotional string if you do it right.
Stuart, can I mention something before I forget it? Otherwise, I
Yeah.
think I'm going to forget.
Go for it.
As we're talking about videos too and telling these stories and why do we do the videos, I think one of the things that comes to mind is, when people say videos, one of the first things people think is TikTok, YouTube, and things like that, and social media. And it's all about, is it going viral? How many views do you have? How many followers do you have? Yes, those are all, important metrics. But sometimes I think about the videos that we're doing and I go, you know what? We've got an audience of 300 really influential people here that support Boys and Girls Club. If we reach even a handful of people and get them to be lifetime donors or, boost their their support, gosh, I mean, it's worth it right there. And we don't have, like, I would say, millions of views or anything like that. It's really about what the video does, even with sometimes a few people, but I have a feeling it affects much more than a handful of people.
It's the same thing that you talked about, the lifetime value of a donor, where you can just get that one person and they say, yes, sign me up, I'm in. And then they become bigger supporters, bigger advocates, and start building that snowball. You're right. It doesn't have to have millions of views to be effective. It doesn't have to have thousands of views to be effective. And we at the Chamber kind of take that in the same route. One of the things I always say is a click is not a handshake. There's a lot of ways to advertise. There's a lot of ways to promote your business. A lot of people think social media, they think AdWords or this and that, but there's still nothing better than a person being able to meet somebody else in Long Beach, shake that hand. Nice to meet you. Let's grab coffee. Let's talk business, see how we can work together. Those kinds of interactions are priceless.
Yeah, no, I think it's really true. It's really true. I mean, just like a really small side story, because I've been doing video for a while. I remember in high school, I got my first video camera, and for some reason, there was a American Heart Association right next door to me, like just down the street. And I had this idea for an anti-smoking video, right? I'm in high school. So I create this little anti-smoking video. It's, it's high school level work, but I wanted to do it, right? I created this anti-smoking ad. And I basically took the tape and walked into the American Heart Association. And I said, I got your next video. I got your next ad. Will you guys watch it? Right. And you know what? They did. They put it in the machine and they watched it right then and there. And I was kind of blown away that I even did that in the first place, walked in their door and had them watch this tape. Well, bottom line is, okay, they complimented me as a high school student, said, thank you for taking the time. They were very nice. Okay, they did not use the ad. But you know why I made that video initially? Sorry, I'm going to get teared up a little bit. My mom was a smoker her whole life. When I was, up until I think she was in her 30s or 40s, she was a smoker. And the original concept was I kind of wanted her to stop smoking. And you know what? I don't know if the video helped or played a part in it. But you know what? She quit cold turkey around that time of her life. She's never smoked again after that. And in my mind, I was like, you know what? Was that video worth it? It affected one person. It affected a really important person to me.
Yeah.
And whether they used that video in their ad campaign at that moment or not, I felt like, you know what? I think something happened from this. Something came out of this video.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first videos I ever did that was for a nonprofit.
It's that audience of one kind of thing, where it's just like, you know who you're trying to make that for. All right. And Mike, Wolfgang Media, do you want to give us just a little bit about what you're doing and how people might be able to reach out to you as well?
Yeah, so I'm here in Long Beach. I'm not going away for a long time, and I love telling amazing stories that make a difference. So you can find me. Easiest way is find me at wolfgangmedia.com. We've got some great sample videos on there.
It's the power of video. You're utilizing it both in that physical form and in the larger form. Video has such power in the right hands or even in any hands. And you don't need it to go viral. You don't need it to have the thousands or 100,000s, the millions of views to be able to make it effective to reach the people that you need.
It's very true.
Yeah, very true.
As we close out here, I'm going to just open up the floor to you guys. If there's anything else that you want to talk about, anything else that we haven't already covered, now is the time.
I think just one thing I want to do is, I want to thank Mike for this amazing partnership. I want to thank you for inviting us on to be able to talk about the work that we do, but it doesn't just stop with just one event. Mike has even been so gracious to give us a video album that we've used with our donors. And, in talking to our VP of development, she said that she's used it in marketing sessions where just showing a brief video and some of the great work that we've been able to collaborate on has been an unbelievable tool that our donors love to see. It captures the magic in a way where numbers and other data that you need as well just doesn't capture. Sometimes it provides that evidence and that proof of impact that we're looking for in everything that we do. So, again, thank you, Mike, for not just at a yearly videos, but for giving us a token to use with our donors, to use throughout our community. We've even used it at some of our school presentations to show principals to get their buy-in for some of the stuff we're doing. So, the power of video, the power of storytelling doesn't just stop with one event. It's an everyday process. And I'm just so thankful for this partnership.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. Yeah, thanks for bringing up the video album. It is a great tool because sometimes people think, oh, video, it's all online. It's all in the cloud, YouTube, TikTok. It's out there somewhere. The video album, it looks like a photo album, but it actually has a video screen inside. It's custom printed. Open it up. The video automatically plays right in front of you. No internet needed or anything like that. And I think to me, I'm a little nostalgic. I'm a little old school. I was lucky enough that, I got read to as a kid. So I've always had a connection with like books and story time. And I thought, man, what a cool connection. It's like, open a book, kids. And then all of a sudden inside there's a screen. So it's a little bit of a juxtaposition. But I love the idea of that it's something, it's tangible, it's something you can hold, and it's not something that's just on your phone or out there somewhere. It's actually in your hand. It's almost like holding a record or even a CD and actually having the music in your hand. It's like holding the video in your hand and having it ready anytime you want to watch it. So that's just another tool that I offer to great partners like Boys and Girls Club.
Well, I want to thank you guys both for taking the time out of your day to talk to the Chamber audience about videos for nonprofits. I think there's a lot of applicable skills that go beyond just nonprofits. A lot of business can be able to utilize other things. Mike, thank you so much for providing all the tips and tricks that you were saying about shooting on iPhones and how to be able to capture that kind of story. And Philip, of course, thank you for the Boys and Girls Club for all that you guys do here in Long Beach. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of The Catalyst. If you haven't already done so, check out our other episodes. We're doing these a lot. My name is Stuart Takahara. Again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye, guys.